Well, good evening, everyone. We're going to be studying the 1260 days of the church in the wilderness. Want to take a particular view. It's kind of similar to that 1260 day we studied, but this time what I want to do is go into a several part series of looking at the positive stuff of the church in the wilderness. Things that will cheer us up about that time. So first of all, I want to say that I came from a place where they were teaching it was all the past, and the denominations today, they teach the whole book of Revelation. It's all the future, and neither one of those are right. It's just so obvious. It doesn't matter where you're going. It's like they take things that have obvious fulfillments in our past and they make it the future. They do that a lot with some of the stuff in Daniel. But what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to show you today why this 1260 days is a literal 3.5 years that leads up to the second coming of Christ. And it can't be the past. It can be right now if the coming of Jesus is within 3.5 years. It can be now. But, the church may be in the wilderness in some countries right now. And it may be that it started. But there is some evidence also that this 3.5 years will include the appearance of the ten-horned beast. Maybe it appears and we don't recognize it. There's some people that said that the 10 Sunni nations is the ten-horned beast. Whenever they had the coalition, the Sunni nations that coalitioned against ISIS and against the Shias. And look, this is what we know. The ten-horned beast comes out of the remnants of the Roman Empire. That's what we know for sure. But see, the thing is, the Roman Empire had an Eastern and a Western. And Europe, the European Union makes up part of it, and all of those fragments make up the Roman Empire. Well, also, the Western Empire, which is all Muslim, it makes up also the Roman Empire. So any of that could be true. And I've heard great arguments for both. So I think the thing to do is really just not to commit to who the ten-horned beast is, until we see it, until we can know that we're looking at it. And, for some people that may have been when the 10 Sunni nations did coalition. But what I want to do is I want to take some simple scriptures to show you some simple truths about why this is right. Okay? Now, we're going to see that 1260 days is 3.5 years. It is 42 months. In a very sneaky way of saying 3.5 is time, that's singular, times, that's plural, and a half a time. It's just a sneaky way of saying 3.5. Daniel employs that a lot. Time, times, and half time. It's also in Revelation that way. But there's a lot of 1260, 3.5, 42 months. It's all the same. 1260 days is 3.5 years. 3.5 years is 42 months. Say, in the time times the half time. So we said it's a sneaky way of saying 3.5. So how do we know it's the same time period? Because every place that they're employed leads up to the second coming of Jesus. That's how we know it's really not the past. See, the guy that taught me prophecy, he tried to say the 1260 years was between 532 AD and 1792, the French Revolution. But every scripture that popped up and said Jesus was coming, it was invisible to him. See, that's how I know that's not right. I know that's not right because Jesus didn't come. Okay? And he doesn't believe in a literal second coming before the 1,000 years. And so it's got to be invisible for him to keep propagating that stuff he's propagating. See? And he's constructed all of his views on Revelation on a false ideal and tried to mash it into a box. And so, what I'm doing different than that is I'm not going to make up my mind upon anything. I'm just going to try to figure out the pieces he's given us plainly. And a lot of this we'll have to wait and see. Okay? This is something we can figure out. Okay? And I'll show you why. Let's go to Daniel's vision. Daniel's vision of the last days before the second coming. That's what this was. And he's very clear about it. Watch. In Daniel 7, beginning in verse 15, now he's been talking about the four nations. I'll go back and pick up a little overview of that in a minute. That's not really important for this study. He talks about the four kingdoms, and they were Greece, they were Medo-Persia. Well, first they were Babylon, Greece, Medo-Persia, and then Rome. Now what happens is the fourth kingdom, being Rome, it gets all wounded and like doesn't die out, but it's just not the force it once was. And what happens in the last days, it revives. That's what we know. That's the 10-horned beast. And how do we know that? Because he tells us. The prophet actually tells us these are those four beasts. So whenever the Bible tells you what something is, it's really dumb to ignore it and just try to come up with a big old long theory. Okay? It's really dumb to ignore it. When he tells you what something is, then you have to take that and come up with a solution, with that being part of the solution. So that's in the first 14 verses of Daniel. He talks about the four kingdoms. Like I said, I'll go back and just give you an overview in a minute. It's not important for the study. But this is Daniel's vision. And what is it? It's a vision of Jesus coming back. Okay? Not his first coming, but his return. Now watch. I, Daniel, was grieved in my spirit, in the midst of my body, and the visions of my head troubled me. And I came near to one of them, one of the angels that was there whenever he was having the visions, and stood by and asked him of the truth of all this. So he told me, and made me to know the interpretation of the things. These great beasts, which are four kings. Now he's talking about four kingdoms, okay? And we just talked about who they were. They were Babylon, Greece, Medo-Persia, and then Rome. Okay? They shall arise out of the earth. All these, as we said, Daniel was there in Babylon when this vision occurred, and the Babylonian king Nebuchadnezzar, he was the first king that was being referred to. We know that because he told us that in this chapter. And this is what he says. But the saints of the Most High shall take the kingdom and possess the kingdom forever and ever. So he's talking about the end result first, the millennial time. There's coming a time that this fourth kingdom, before the second coming of Jesus, it's going to rise. And he's saying that at this time, the saints of the Most High is going to possess the kingdom. The kingdoms of this world will become Jesus' kingdom. All kingdoms will become one kingdom, his. And he says, we're going to possess it. So he gives the end result first, the millennial time. And then he says, I would know the truth of the fourth beast. Now this is the one we're interested in. The fourth beast, which was diverse from all the others, exceedingly dreadful, whose teeth was of iron, his nails of brass, and he devoured and brake in pieces and stamped the residue with his feet. We're talking about this kingdom, this fourth kingdom, the revived, whatever it revives from, the elements of the Roman Empire. It's going to break up all the other kingdoms. Destroy them, consume them. This one world government, it's coming. Okay, we know it's coming. And I think that what we're going to be seeing before the end of the year will be the beginning of making that happen. I think it will be the 10-horned beast. I don't think we've seen it yet anymore. That's just my opinion. I think that whatever's fixing to happen beyond him to bring us into this, there's something going to form up that will be what we're looking at right here. And then I think the clock is punched for the 3.5 years. Most likely. Okay? Now, this is the overview. If we go back in Daniel 7, verse 4, he said Babylon was the lion. Verse 5 said that Medo-Persia was the bear, and Greece was the leopard, and Rome was the 10-horned beast. Okay? And we're talking about, Revelation says it's a dragon, but it wasn't always a 10-horned beast. It's a 10-horned beast before the second coming. So he's jumping to the end of time with this revived Holy Roman Empire. Now, the fourth beast, or the kingdom, would be a sign of this coming. We're just continue to look at Daniel 7, and he says, and we want to note the last thing that he said, I would know the truth of the fourth beast. Now, verse 20, and of the 10 horns that were on his head, and of the others that came up before whom 3 fell, and of the horn that had eyes, a mouth that spake great things, whose look was more stout than his fellow. So this one horn, we know the horns are kings. He tells us that. So there's one that rises up that's more powerful, uproots 3. And this one here is going to be a great false prophet of some sort. Okay? And we know this, we know about this little horn. He's also talked about in Revelation. And so this same horn, he's going to make war with the saints. That's why we're calling him the false prophet. He is after the saints. He's trying to end Christianity. And we already see this Antichrist spirit going on now with trying to shut down Christianity in every way possible through legal maneuvers. Okay? And so he says that he's going to make war with the saints and prevail against them until the Ancient of Days came. Now remember what we said? How do we know this 1260 days is the future? Because it's leading up to Jesus coming. Okay? Until the Ancient of Days came. Now I'm just saying, everywhere that I grew up, that verse was invisible. You might as well take white out and just zip it out of your book, because they're not going to comment on it. And they're not going to repent of their view either. They will throw you out for disagreeing with them, but they're not going to change their view. But that's why I put an asterisk here, is I want to teach people to see the verse. It says this is what he's going to do, make war with the saints until the Ancient of Days comes. Say. And when he came, judgment was given to who? The saints. And the time came that the saints possessed the kingdom. Now you might have had in your mind a little while ago when we looked at a verse that was similar to this. How does Kuhn know that this is going to be after Jesus comes, we're going to possess the kingdom? He brings it back up and he tells us, when Jesus comes, we're going to possess the kingdom. This kingdom is the millennial kingdom that's going to be here in this earth after Jesus comes. Now that's clear from 22. Okay? And then he said, thus he said, the fourth beast shall be the fourth kingdom upon the earth, which shall be diverse from all other kingdoms. See? And he shall devour the whole earth and shall tread it down and break it to pieces. We're talking about whatever government's going to rise is going to consume all other governments. That is a world government. Okay? Now, I did hear a preacher say one time that because 10 is a number of completion, it may not ever be literally 10 kings. I kind of wondered if it might not be, continents, but I think there's only 9, right? Is there 9 major continents? 9? 7? Cindy says 7.
Well,
So
there's some subcontinents too, though.
yeah, and I wondered about that. But, the thing is, one guy said that the 10 is a number of completion. It could just mean all of them. It could mean the world governments. And so I don't know if that's true or not. Maybe it is. It's an opinion. And so what we're looking at is whatever this is, this fourth beast, when it revives at the end of time out of that Roman Empire, whether it be east or west, it's going to consume all the other kingdoms of the world. And they want this. Trust me, they openly talk about this in the UN and in our own government about doing it right now. Let's have a one world government. This is what they want. Regardless of what Americans want, this is what they want. And so look, the Bible says it's going to happen. So you'd be pretty dumb to sit around talking about, I'm going to get my gun. You'd be pretty dumb. The Bible already says it's coming. The best thing to do is roll with it. Because you can't stop what Jesus has told Daniel is going to happen. Just because you love whatever it is you love about America. You can't stop it. Jesus says it's coming. So there's no sense in saying, I'm going to get my gun. I talked to someone yesterday said they were going to do that. And I said, that's just really dumb. I said, this is why it's dumb. Because we know how it ends. They don't believe that what we believe is true. But our beliefs don't hurt them if they don't believe that it's true. So they're not going to hate us for believing that Jesus is going to come with his army and wipe them out. They're not going to hate us for that. They're going to hate us for picking up our own guns and trying to keep them from taking over the world. That's what they're going to hate us for. A peaceful people are not a threat. And so what we're just talking about is if Jesus says it's going to happen, you have to go through it to get to the new earth. So what I want to talk about is what going through it can look like for believers that trust Jesus. That's what this lesson's about. So I'm saying, yeah, there is a 10-horned beast. Yeah, it is going to subdue others. It's going to trample and consume all kingdoms of the world. And then there's going to be another one that's going to rise, this false prophet dude, whoever he is. And he's going to speak great words against God. And he's going to wear out the saints. Now, I shared this with you before, but I want you to remember this wear out doesn't mean to round everybody up and kill them. Now, look, the devil could do that if he could. It's just not in God's plan for him to do that to you. Wear out means, in a mental sense, to afflict, to just wear down, to wear out. So, they're kind of doing that now with all these hostile laws they're passing, making you feel helpless. Just, illegal laws that, just with your pen, struggle with a pen, writing things that are against the Constitution, against the law. They're wearing people out. And they're doing that also against the house of God. Hostile laws, hostile policies. See? Just wearing people out. See? And it's true, the whole gay marriage thing, that is just to wear out the saints. See, you try to get that to a place where two men can come to a preacher and ask him to do a wedding. If he says no, then he gets in bad trouble. That's what that's for, to try to create that kind of situation. Some people have seen it in Texas. Our state has come up with a pastor protection law to keep that from happening here. But that's where that's coming from. It's to wear out the saints. And so these are techniques that they're using to wear out the saints. And so he's going to speak words against the Most High. He's going to wear out the saints of the Most High. He's going to change times and laws. We see that happening now even. And it's because it's the same Antichrist spirit working to bring this about, is that's going to be in this false prophet that arises and subdues these three kings. And so he's saying that he's going to change times and laws, and they'll be given into his hand. God's saying that I'm going to give it into his hand to do this for 3.5 years. Times and dividing of time. There's 3.5 years he's going to have his way. But then he says the judgment's going to sit. And this will be the Lord's army. We can read about that in Revelation 19. Everybody comes down on white horses. It's going to be a very bad day for wicked. Okay, very, very bad day for the wicked people. The Bible says they all come down on white horses, the whole army of God. And when they are done, that there is a major flock of buzzards called to clean up the mess. And it'll just tell you that. It will tell you that the birds of prey will come to clean up the mess. If y'all notice how big they are these days, I don't know about y'all, but when I was a kid, crows and buzzards weren't this big, with 5 feet wingspans and all that. I didn't see that when I was a kid. It just looks like to me that they're kind of being manipulated, prepared for a special job. I'm just saying. Look up every now and then. See the size of these buzzards these days. All right? And so he's saying that the judgment's going to sit, and the Lord's army shall take away the dominion of whatever's coming. He's going to consume it and destroy it to the end. And the kingdom and dominion and the greatness of the kingdom under the whole heaven shall be given to who? The people of the saints. You see that? Everything that's here in this world, everything is going to be given to the saints of the Most High, whose kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and all dominions shall serve and obey Jesus. So there is going to be a one world government. It's just not the one they're planning. It's going to be a one world government under Jesus. And it's just a matter of time. Okay? So this is the 3.5 year of the reign of the false prophet. Just want to show that they're all being consistent with the use of this 3.5, 1260, and 42 months. In Daniel chapter 12, he speaks again, and he says in verse 1, At that time shall Michael stand up, the great prince which standeth for the children of thy people. We're talking about a commander in Jesus' army, Michael, the archangel. And there shall be a time of trouble. Now this is that same 3.5 years that I believe that we're talking about. Okay? Such as never since there was a nation unto this very time. He's saying this is a time of trouble the world has never seen. It's a big time of trouble. Big trouble. Okay? And at that time thy people shall be delivered. Now I want you to see this. Everyone found written in the book, he's saying at that time they're going to be delivered. And something else that I noticed, he said, Many that sleep in the dust shall awake, some to everlasting life, some to everlasting contempt. Now this is either one or two things. I've showed y'all many times in these presentations that that sometimes he talks about the first coming at the beginning of the 1,000 years and the final coming at the end of the 1,000. He talks about them as one event, and that's the way he hid it from people. I found many passages, shared that with you in the past, showing that he does that. Or he could be talking about the first resurrection in Revelation 20. The Bible speaks of a partial resurrection at the beginning of the 1,000 years. He said the rest of the dead will not live again till the end of the 1,000 years is finished. I'm just saying, it's in the Bible. Now, the thing that makes me think this is not it is how some of the wicked are raised up with the righteous. Because he says some are raised to everlasting contempt. So that kind of makes me think, well, that's probably after the 1,000. That's just my view of it. But he says many, not all, so maybe there's something I don't know about that. Okay? If there's a first resurrection, a last resurrection, this is another one of those things that we may have to wait and see. Okay? But then this is what he says, that the wise shall shine as the brightness of the firmament, and they that turn many to righteousness as the stars forever and ever. But then he says, shut up and seal the words of the book to the time of the end. And so he's saying that a lot of these things that he's talking about, we're never going to figure it out till right at the time that it's here. Or right at the end, the time of the end. And you know, some of this that we're figuring out together is probably because it's time. Pieces of it we ain't figured out. We'll see it. We'll know it when we see it. But he says that about this in Daniel 12. Now, how long is the power of the church shattered? This is also in Daniel 12. If we continue to read in verse 5, he says, Then I, Daniel, looked, and behold, there stood two, the one on this side of the bank of the river, and the other on that other side of the bank of the river. This is also something that John saw. By the way, this is in Revelation as well. I think Daniel was seeing John, and John was seeing Daniel thousands of years apart. But it's the same vision that's in Revelation. And so there's an angel on the river. John's on one side, I think, Daniel's on the other. And John's talking to the angel on the river, and Daniel's talking to the angel on the river. Okay? And so it says, And the one said to the man clothed in linen that was upon the waters of the river, How long shall it be to the end of these wonders? And I heard the man clothed in linen, the angel on the river, which was upon the waters of the river, when he held up his right hand and his left hand unto heaven, and he sware by him that liveth forever, that it shall be for a time, times, and half a time. So this is what he's saying. How long to the end of the mystery? How long to the end of these wonders that he's seeing? He's saying again, the end of it's 3.5 years. So there is a 3.5 year time, the 1260 days, that leads up to the second coming when the Ancient of Days comes. And this is what he says is going to happen in this 3.5 years. He shall have accomplished to scatter the power of the holy people. This is what I want you to know. What's going on today with the governments and the churches? They are shattering the power of the holy people. See, when I was a kid, they had influence, they had power. See, and now they're shattering that power. It's in stages and degrees, but everything that they're doing is designed to scatter and shatter this power. The influence of preachers. So this is what we're looking at, and the church is going underground. Just like it is in China, it'll go underground here too. And I think we've already received warning of that in this church. Okay? And so he's saying that during this 3.5 years, he's going to the enemy and the false prophet is going to scatter the power of the holy people, and all these things will be finished. So I want to look at verse 7 from the modern version. I heard the man dressed in linen clothes. He said, It will be for a time, times, and a half a time, when the power of the holy people shall be completely shattered. And then all these things will be finished. So because Jesus is coming. It's over for the wicked and their 3.5 year reign. I hope it was fun, because it's not going to be fun thereafter. Okay? Whatever they thought within their heart to do, it's payday. All right? Now, the wise will recognize the times. In Daniel 12 verse 8, he says, I heard, but I understood not. Then I said, O my Lord, what shall be the end of these things? And he said, Go thy way, Daniel, for the words are closed up and sealed to the time of the end. He wasn't going to tell Daniel everything about this 3.5 years. And this is what he says, though. Many will be purified and made white and tried. The wicked's going to do wickedly, and none of the wicked shall understand, but the wise shall understand. Now listen, this is what's been going on in y'all's lives right now. This is why I call y'all overcomers. Say, we're being purified and made white and tried. The troubles in our life right now, look, this is what I tell myself when I get down about it. Whatever it is, God wants you to go through it. Whatever's going on, He wants you to go through it. Because it's a time to use your troubles when you're tried to purify you, make you white. That call of holiness, the changes I see y'all making in your lives, this is what's going on. And then He's saying that the wise are going to know the time. They're going to know the time of the end is near. But the wicked are going to go on, oh, they've been saying that since I was young. That's the way they talk. And they're not taking any note of what's going on in the world. That, time is near. The time of the end is near of this age. The end of this age is what I'm talking about. John's vision in its meeting. Now, I want to start covering this wilderness. Eventually, I want to do a comparison between the wilderness march of the children of Israel out of Egypt and the wilderness march of the church. There is a comparison. I don't know if y'all are aware of that, but there is a very, very good comparison of what's going on with the Israelites and what's going on with the church. Okay? And just to give you a couple examples, when Moses was born, the Pharaoh pushed to have all the firstborn killed. And when Jesus was born, then so did Herod, pushed to have all the firstborn killed. And see, they were trying to prevent. The devil knew. He knew that it was time for the people of Israel to be delivered. He was trying to keep that from happening by killing the deliverer. And the devil knew again that it was time to deliver the people. And he was trying to prevent Jesus from delivering the people. And so also when the children of Israel were in the wilderness, God fed them and watered them from a rock. And we are being forecast to get the same kind of supernatural care from God in the church wilderness as well. I want y'all to know that. Okay? That's why we don't need permission to buy and sell. It's a decision. It's not a decision to starve to death. That's not what it is. It's a decision to trust God, and He feeds you and gives you water. If from a rock, if necessary. These are the days that are coming. Now in Revelation chapter 12, the woman dressed in light, she's the church, and we'll show you what we know about that. In verse 1 it says, there appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, the moon under her feet, and the crown of stars upon her head. Now look, what we see is a woman dressed up in God's light, is what we say. The church, this Revelation chapter 12 is the church going into the wilderness. It's the 3.5 years before the second coming. That's what this chapter is about. The church is clothed in the light of God, crowned in the light of the 12 apostles. And so when we look at what the Bible says about these symbols, the meaning of the symbols, the sun, moon, and stars. For example, right here, when it speaks of Jesus, it says His face was like the sun when it shines in its brightness. So see, the woman is clothed in the sun. Okay? The stars, he says, are the messengers. This word is often used for the apostles. We're the messengers of the churches. This word is also often translated either angels or apostles, depending upon the context. In other words, it's either heavenly or earthly ministers, and that's what this word means, messengers. So the stars are the messengers. So she's got the stars upon her head. She's clothed in the sun. And we see this has to do with God's light, whether it's shown from a star, an apostle, or from Jesus, which was like the sun. See? And so back in Genesis, we can see that when Joseph had a dream and he said that he saw the sun, moon, and stars bowing down to him, that his mom and dad, being prophets, they all got mad. Okay? And the reason for that, and see, he tells them, we know what that means. Is your mother and dad going to bow down to you? And the reason for that is like God's the Father, so He's sunlight. See? And the mother she's moonlight. See? And that's what it's talking about. So starlight, moon. And so in the New Testament we find is that God is sunlight and the church is moonlight. That's what we find out about that. See? Is that the church is the mother of us all. Is what it says in Hebrews chapter 12. See? New Jerusalem, the mother of us all. See? And so we're showing how that this transfers from father and mother of Old Testament, literal father and mother of Old Testament, right down to father and mother of New Testament, which is God and the church. Okay? So this is what we're looking at, is this sunlight and moonlight, apostles being starlight. A lot of times when the Bible talks about you, it'll call you candlelight, sometimes starlight, something like that, say. But it's the light of God shining through you in a lesser amount, because you're a vehicle for that light. So the church will be a greater light because it's a collective, it's moonlight. God is sunlight, and you're like starlight. Okay? But as a collective, we're moonlight. Okay? So it's more light. So when we look at this, we can see the light of God is dimming right before Jesus comes. Look what he says. Matthew 24, verse 29, immediately after the tribulation of those days, the sun will be darkened. So he's saying that nobody's seeing God's light anymore. Now, it can be literal too, because of the complexity of God's Word. We're omitting that. We may actually see some literal darkness where the sun don't shine. We may see some literal nights that the moon does not shine, because I believe that God's Word is that complex, where He gives the literal signs to the people to recognize them, and then He gives some spiritual signs to people to recognize them. And it depends upon your level of understanding how much that you'll get. So he's saying the sun's going to be darkened, the moon's not going to give her light, and the stars will fall from heaven, and the powers of heaven shall be shaken. So we're talking about no light being given from the sun, moon, and stars right before what? Jesus sends all of His angels. See that? Then he says, after all this dimming and this shaking going on, now we know the shaking is what He's going to do to punish the wicked for trying to take over the world and shut down God. Okay? That's what the shaking is. And we've shown that in previous studies. But he says, after the dimming of these things and the shaking going on, he says, then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven. Everybody's going to start crying. It's too late then. They're going to see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. And all that time they've been ragging on Him, talking bad about Him, blaspheming Him. You know, and here He comes in all His glory. He's sending all His army, His whole army, all of His angels, with a great sound of a trumpet. And they're going to gather together His elect. I don't know. I feel like we're going to be gathered together for the marriage supper of the Lamb. Just my opinion. He's going to gather us together from one end of heaven to the other. But we know from the parable of the tares that all the wicked are carted off to a great big bundle burning. Okay? We know that too. So we see God's influence is waning in the world. So the church is going in the wilderness. The government's purged Jesus from everything. And it's all a sign of His coming. And we just point out that it can be literal or spiritual in its significance. Then there's this birth pains idea. If we go back to Revelation chapter 12, we'll go to the next verse, verse 2, where the woman goes in the wilderness. It says, she being with child cried travailing in birth and pain to be delivered. And she brought forth a man-child that was to rule the nations with a rod of iron, and her child was caught up to God into His throne. Now this is one of those places where the first and second comings talked about together, we talked about. See, this was Jesus' first coming. He was born of the Old Testament church. He came right through Mary and Joseph, God being the Father. See? And so when we see that when the Old Testament church gave birth to Jesus, that He was born through the very lineage of that Old Testament church, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, children of Israel, tribe of Judah. Then it says, when she brought forth this man-child, what was He to do? He was going to rule the nations with a rod of iron. Now that's Jesus' signature calling card. When you look at Him in Revelation 19, and we'll do that before we close today, He's coming to rule with a rod of iron. You know, when He comes in the clouds with all of His angels, that's what He's coming to do. So she was born, but we know He was crucified and rose from the dead to get caught up to God. Okay? So this is how He hides it from the general world. They don't know what He's talking about. So this is an image of the tribulation period. What we're looking at is there's an image of the tribulation period being birth pains that usher in the return of Jesus. So this is what I want to show you about this, that she's being travailing in birth, pain to be delivered. That right there is before the second coming. Now we're going to show you how all that works in a moment. See, we said we got Jesus being born in verse 5, but then we got travailing in birth and pain at the end of time. And that's just exactly the way the prophets taught it was going to be. Okay? Here it is in Isaiah 66. Verse 6, a voice of noise from the city, a voice from the temple, a voice, the Lord that renders recompense to his enemies. So see, whenever he's rendering recompense to his enemies, that's when he comes to rule the nations with a rod of iron. It's not when he came the first time. The first time he was born like a little baby, didn't come killing anybody. And he grew up and was healing people, teaching people about God's love. Well, this right here has changed because he called and they didn't answer. Matter of fact, they wanted to rid the world of Jesus. So there's a time for him to come back and make that right. He's going to rule. And so he's coming to render recompense to his enemies. He has enemies. And listen what he says in verse 7. Before she travailed, she brought forth. Do you see what he's saying? He was born right here. Okay? But the travail comes right before he returns. So he's saying that before she had labor pains, the baby was born. The baby was born first and the labor pains came later. 2,000 years later. Right before he returned the second time. And that's what he's talking about. Before her pain came, she was delivered of a man-child. There's your man-child that was born 2,000 years ago. He's coming back to rule with a rod of iron when he recompenses enemies. So the tribulation period is the birth pains before he comes the second time. And that's all he's talking about. And unless you know these things, sorry dude, you're not going to get it. You're just not. This is how he hides it from the wicked. The wicked look at this book and say, it don't make sense. Shut it. They don't want to believe it. They don't want to understand it. But I can explain it to you if you want to know. Okay? Jesus was born in a peaceful time for the church. The birth pains begin before his return. And that's what we're pointing out. Birth pains is tribulation, but much of the tension is on Israel and not you being in Huntsville, Texas. All right? I want you to know that. These birth pains are not just for you to have all these troubles all about you wherever you are. The focus is on Israel and these birth pains. Okay? Where Jesus was born right through the Old Testament church. Romans chapter 11, Isaiah 59 both say that there's a day to graft Israel back into the church. He's going to do it. He cannot go back on his word. He has to do it. He's already spoken on it. So he's going to do it. And it says the time he's going to do it in Romans 11 and Isaiah 59 verse 20. When the Redeemer comes back to Zion is when he's going to do it. He's returning. Okay? So he says in Jeremiah 30 verse 5, for thus saith the Lord, we have heard a voice of trembling, of fear and not of peace. So this is what they hear over there right now in Israel. They can't get peace. There's nothing but trouble. No kind words. Ask ye now and see whether a man doth travail with child. So he's saying, you ever seen a man having birth pains? Okay. Wherefore do I see every man with his hands on his loins as a woman in travail with pale faces. Okay. This is what it's like in Israel when all your enemies are saying, we're going to wipe you off the map. And they're surrounded. Everybody wants them dead. Alas, for that day is great, and none is like it. It is even the time of Jacob's trouble, and he's going to be saved out of it. You can bet one thing, whatever they're planning, it's not going through. This is the time of Jacob's trouble. The focus is trouble on Israel. Those are the birth pains, and Jesus is going to save him out of it. For it shall come to pass in that day, saith the Lord of hosts, that I will break his yoke from off thy neck, and burst thy bonds, and strangers shall no more serve themselves of him. He said, the day's coming, you're not going to answer to anybody but me. You're not going to have somebody over trying to tell you you can't do this and you got to do that. They're not going to do that anymore. But they shall serve the Lord their God and David their king. Of course, Jesus is the son of David. He's talking in code again. Whom I will raise up to them is who they're going to serve. Jesus is coming back. Israel is coming into the church. He's going to rule. This world will be his kingdom. Romans 11, Isaiah 59 verse 20 both speak of grafting Israel back into the church at the time the Redeemer returns. And that's exactly the words he used when the Redeemer returns to Zion. Okay? Now, the birth pains and tribulation that brings the return of Christ. If we look at Isaiah 26, I just want to show you what he says about these birth pains. Verse 17, like as a woman with child that draweth near, the time of her delivery is in pain, and crieth out in her pains, so have we been in thy sight, O Lord. This is right up at the end time. They're having the birth pains. This is us, Israel. We have been with child and have been in pain. Verse 19. Thy dead men shall live, together with my dead body shall they arise. Again, we got a resurrection going on at the beginning of this 1000. Awake and sing, ye that dwell in the dust, for thy dew is the dew of herbs, and the earth shall cast out the dead. I know this is the first resurrection. I know that there's something going to happen there. Now look what he says to the rest of us. Come, my people, and enter thou into thy chambers, and shut the doors about thee, hide thyself, as it were for a little moment, until the indignation be overpast. Behold, the Lord is coming out of his place to punish the inhabitants of the earth for their iniquity. He's not coming for you. I want you to understand that the Lord is coming against the wicked. He's not coming against his people. He's saying, you go into your bedchambers, you shut your door, to your little bedroom, you shut your little door, and you just stay there till it's over. This don't apply to you. The Lord's going to come out of his place, and he's going to punish the inhabitants of the earth for their iniquity, and the earth will disclose her blood and no more cover her slain. So we're all going to be here when it happens. He is coming to destroy the wicked. Okay? He's coming to gather us up for a good reason, not a bad one. Now if we go back to Revelation chapter 12 and look at verse 3, we want to start just watching this 10-horned beast and how that it signifies the second coming. Now we're just looking at the third verse. And all we're doing is going back and getting some Old Testament stuff to show we're on track with what he's teaching, Revelation 1 and 2. Okay? Revelation 12 verse 3, and it says, there appeared a wonder in heaven, a great red dragon. Now this red dragon is the devil. Okay? And he is the one that's fueling and giving life to this beast. So he's having 7 heads and 10 horns, and the 7 crowns upon his head. And his tail drew a third part of the stars of heaven. That's the fallen angels that were cast out with him. Okay? And he did cast them to the earth, and the red dragon, he said the dragon, now look, and he's talking about the dragon person, not necessarily the 10-horned beast that he's given life to. He stood forth to devour the child as soon as it was born. This is what happened to Jesus. When he was born, Herod sent to Bethlehem to slew all the firstborn, just like the Pharaoh did to Moses, to try to get the firstborn there. And so this is what the devil was trying to do, is stop the deliverer. And so the devil did this way before the 10-horned beast forms up. So he's showing the vision of the 10-horned beast. This is the end result before Jesus returns. But this happened when Jesus was born, when the Old Testament church gave birth to the Savior. Okay? And that's what Jesus means, is Savior. So that's what he did, is he tried to stop it there. And we know Jesus grew up, and what she did, she gave birth to a man-child. He was brought forth, a man-child who was to rule the nations with a rod of iron. That's his second coming. So he was born 2,000 years ago, but he's coming back soon to rule the nations with a rod of iron. So we see her child was caught up to God and to his throne until that day that it was to happen. So the first and second coming are being taught together here. This is one of those places. It helps hide the prophecy till the time to understand it. Daniel already put the 10-horned beast in the last 3.5 years. That's how we started this study. The 10-nation coalition arising to persecute will be a sign of that coming being within 3.5 years. We can't do a day or an hour, but we can do a season probably. Just like the Lord said we'd be able to do. Now, we are not going anywhere. Jesus is coming here. If we look at Revelation 2, verse 25 to 28, we want to talk about this rod of iron a little bit and its significance. And he says in 2, this is a message to the last days church. And he says, that which ye have, hold fast till I come. He's saying, I'm coming. That's how I know it's a last days church. He's talking to people that's going to be here when he gets here. All right? And he says, and he that overcometh and keepeth my works to the end, till I give power over the nations. He's saying, when I restructure, I'm going to do what I said when I was here. He said, I'm going to make you rule over so many cities, you rule over so many cities. That's what he's going to do. He's going to restructure the earth with his own people. Okay? And so he's saying, I'm going to give you power over the nations. He's going to structure it with his people. And he says he's going to rule it with a rod of iron. That's what he's coming to do. That's what he was born to do. When Revelation 12 introduced him as being born, he's saying that's what he was born to do, to rule with a rod of iron. See? And so this is in verse 27. As a vessel of a potter shall they be broken to shivers, as I've received of my Father. I will give to him a morning star. We know He said, I'm going to give to this church the morning star, which he says, Revelation 22:16 is me. He said, I, Jesus, am the morning star. And that's all he's being sneaky at saying, I'm coming. I've told you, but now I'm going to do it sneaky. I'm coming still. Okay? That's what all that is. All right? We are not going anywhere. Jesus is coming here. When we look at Revelation 19, 11 through 16, this is what John saw. He saw heaven opened up, and behold, a white horse, and him that sat upon him. Faithful and true, and righteous he does judge and make war. He's coming, he's going to do business. He's coming for business. Okay? And the armies which followed him on white horses. They're all on white horses. So, someone tells you there's no animals in heaven. I have a tendency to disagree. There's enough horses up there for the whole army of God to come down on. Okay? And so, they're all clothed in white, fine linen, clean and white. And he says, out of his mouth goes a sharp sword, that with he should smite the nations, and he's going to rule them with a rod of iron. That's what he's coming to do. From the time he was born, every time it talks about him coming, he said, I'm coming to rule with a rod of iron. And so, we know a rod is for correction, punishment, rule. That's what we're told to do with it, to discipline our children. So he's saying, when he said, I'm coming to rule with a rod of iron, we're talking about strict rule. No more nonsense. Okay, strict rule. And then he talks about treading the winepress of his wrath. And we're talking about that's just how, the wicked are a picture of the wicked being destroyed. And he had on his vesture a name written, King of Kings, Lord of Lords. This is how it ends. In Revelation 19, we will look at verse 20 and 21 with that. It says that the beast, that's the 10-horned beast, he was taken, and with him that false prophet. That's how we know that guy back in Daniel 7 was a false prophet, because he talks about him here. Before, he just said he was a man more stout than his fellows, and he spoke great words against the Most High. Well, here he calls him a false prophet. So you got the beast and the false prophet that wrought miracles before him, which deceived them that had received the mark of the beast, and them that worshiped the image. I talked to someone about that yesterday on the phone, worried about the chip. I don't have any evidence that there's going to be any chip. I don't believe there's going to be any chip. The Bible talks about people that have been marked with the mark of God. You can find that in Revelation chapter 9, verse 1 through 4. He says, don't go out and hurt anybody till I seal my people. Okay? So we got God's people being sealed with a mark. We got the devil's people being sealed with a mark. It don't mean it's got to be a literal mark. It just means you belong to them. You're wearing that brand. Okay? And I've seen some of the people that believe Islam is the beast. They make an argument that I really don't know how to defeat about that when you look at the Greek for the 666, that's Arabic for what they wear on their forehead. And they can compare and show that those symbols are the same, and they are. I've seen it. You can look that up on YouTube. That when people like Walid Shabat started getting converted from Islam to Christianity, and he started reading the Bible, and he saw that, he said, I know what that is. That's Arabic. That's what we used to wear on foreheads. That's where it says 666 in English, but in Greek it says what they wear on their foreheads. So the fact is they got armbands, and if you look at the mark of the hand, it doesn't mean hand. It means arm, left side or left arm. So they got the green armbands and the green headbands. They do that already. And they're killing everyone that won't become a Muslim. So, they make an argument. I don't know how to defeat. Okay? So, I'm not looking for a chip, and I'm not afraid of a chip, because a chip don't make you good or evil. You know what makes you good or evil? Going with that false prophet. Or going with God. See? And so it's really kind of silly to put all that on the chip, ain't it? So, this is what we have, this 10-horned beast. He's taken, the false prophet's taken. They're both cast alive into the lake of fire. This is a hands-on job. That's what you need to know about that. It's a hands-on job. Jesus himself is going to take care of the beast, the false prophet. The remnant that were slain with a sword that sat upon the horse, which the sword proceeded out of his mouth, and all the fowls are filled with their flesh. That's what we're talking about, the big buzzards. How big the buzzards are getting. They got a very big job ahead to do, to clean up all the mess. Okay? Now, if we look at 2 Thessalonians 1, verse 6 through 8, it says, seeing it is a righteous thing with God to recompense tribulation that trouble you, he's saying it's a good thing for me to trouble people that trouble you. I'm going to pay back. Vengeance belongs to the Lord. It don't belong to us. He says, but to you who are troubled, he said, rest with us. Now this is a rest that he's projecting for us after the wilderness period. Rest with us when the Lord shall be revealed from heaven with his mighty angels. He's saying, your trouble's over, come rest with us. You're going to get to join up with Jesus and his army. It's going to be a big celebration. Everybody's going to be happy. There's going to be a rest with them. And he says, he's going to come here in flaming fire taking vengeance on everybody that doesn't know God, everybody that doesn't obey the gospel. That's the end game. Now, this is about the church growing underground. Okay? The church is going underground, probably be a lot of house churches during this time. What we can see from Revelation chapter 12 is that the woman fled into the wilderness where she has a place prepared. Now this is one of the first things that jumped out about me, is that God is preparing a place not just for us, but for all of his people. Whoever they are, he's preparing a place for them to go. But I want you to look at what he says he's going to do. As the church goes underground to this place that God prepares, he said he's going to feed her there for this 1,260 days, which is 3.5 years or 42 months. So he's forecasting actually feeding us, giving us water like he did the church in the wilderness of Israel, the church of Israel. He says there was war in heaven. Michael's angels fought the dragon and his angels fought, but see, they don't prevail. The devil and his angels don't prevail. They're going to lose this. There was not any place found for them in heaven anymore. He was cast out, the serpent, the devil, that Satan was to seize the whole world. He's cast out to the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. Now look what he says. When the devil and his angels are cast to the earth, I'm interpreting that as there's being a limitation now. We saw where before they could go places. They even at times the devil presented themselves before God. In the book of Job, he's saying that they're being confined to the earth. But when they get confined here, I want you to look at what he says happens to the church. Now has come salvation and strength and the kingdom of our God and the power of his Christ. He meets that coming down, the devil and his angels coming down here. He meets that with the Holy Ghost power. I'm telling you, when things get dark, the church gets light, and it gets light. He begins to cast his net on those people he approves of. He does that by Holy Ghost power to where people can see these people are God's people. And the ones that he hasn't chosen won't receive that power. I'm just wanting you to see that when the devil and his angel comes here, his angels come here, then the Holy Ghost power comes to us. Okay? The salvation, strength, the kingdom of God, and the power of his Christ. And he says, for the accuser of our brethren is cast down, which accuse before God day and night. And I just want to point that out. I think the devil is going to be fueling this apostate church, this world religion. It's going to rise in political power, but the church, the true church, is going to rise in spiritual power and evangelism. God has everything under control. If we look at verse 10 through 14, we just want to look at an overview of what he says is going to be like for the church to be in the wilderness here. He says, and I heard a loud voice saying in heaven, now has come salvation, strength, kingdom of our God, the power of his Christ, to accuse our brethren. We picked that back up, showed that again. The accusers of our brethren are cast down, which accuse them for God day and night. And he says, they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb, by the word of their testimony. They loved not their lives to the death. They were completely devoted to God. It says, therefore rejoice ye heavens, and ye that dwell in them, and woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea, for the devil has come down to you having great wrath, because he knows he has a short time. So he knows he's got 3.5 years left. Okay? And the dragon saw he was cast down to the earth. He started to persecute the woman that brought forth the man-child. So that's the church. And to the woman was given wings of an eagle. Now look, this is God showing, I got your back. I'm going to protect you in this time. He says that to the woman were given wings of an eagle, that she might fly into the wilderness and to her place, where she is nourished for a time, times and a half a time. Showing this whole 1,260 years, she is protected and nourished from the face of the serpent. He said, I'm not going to let him have you. This is important to see that he's got a plan for us. In verse 15 to 17, confirmation of the woman is the church. We can see the serpent cast out of his mouth of water as a flood after the woman, that he might cause her to be carried away of the flood. And the earth helped the woman. And the earth opened her mouth and swallowed up the flood that the dragon cast out of his mouth. Whatever he throws at you, he's saying, I got your back. I'm going to take care of it. And he says, the dragon was wroth with the woman. He went to make war with the remnant of her seed, which keep the commandments of God and have the testimony of Jesus. That's how we know the woman's the church. See, they're just us, the righteous people that keep the commandments and have the testimony of Jesus. So this is the identity of the woman, her seed, the church and the converts, because God's protection is because of God's protection in this time, Satan tries to flood the church maybe with filth, corruption. I've heard people say that. Maybe that's true. But God will destroy the means whereby the devil provocates that whatever he's going to throw at us. I think this is the last slide. We just want to show you that we win in the end. In Revelation 17, verse 12 through 14, the 10 horns that thou sawest are 10 kings. They haven't received a kingdom yet, but they receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast. These may be prime ministers and presidents. Say they don't, as it says there, they've not received power as kings as of yet. He says they just have one mind. They're going to give their power and strength to the beast. They're going to make war with the Lamb. The Lamb's going to overcome them because he's Lord of Lords, King of Kings. And they that are with him are called, chosen, and faithful. And that's what I want you to see, is that we're chosen to live this time. We're chosen to be that faithful, to be with him. That's all I'm going to share with you with part 1. I'll turn it back over to the brother in charge.